Hi, everybody, and thank you all for joining in this webinar today with Product School and myself, Moheeth Alvi, to talk about product management and the CEO mindset. I'd love to start by thanking Product School for this forum. I think this is a great mission, and the larger business community and companies around the world will really benefit from the product management role. So I'm really happy that Product School is a place that gives this role and discipline more visibility and helps aspiring and new product managers learn about the discipline, how to be more effective within their roles, and find their own journey to product management and in turn entrepreneurship. So thanks again for joining. This session will be around 25 minutes and would love some questions in the end. Starting with today's agenda, we're going to begin by defining the goals for our discussion, what I hope to accomplish and what I hope to get out of this, and what in turn I hope you will receive out of the discussion. I'd love to give a quick intro on my own product journey and my own background. Often I am asked about how do you get into product, what are the prerequisites and steps you need to take to get a product job. And for all those aspiring product managers out there, happy to go into how I got into it, and maybe that will be insightful. And then coming to the main topic for the discussion, which is product management and the CEO mindset. It has three subcategories that will address this topic, which is one, a business is just an extension of a product, and it takes the same principles to run and start successful businesses and products. Number two, it is all about your customer, and the job of product is to enable sales. And the third subcategory, which is going from 0 to 1. So what is the journey from your brain to the bank account, and a rite of passage for all product managers, and the most difficult type of product management to execute. And we'll end with some Q&A, and I'll share my information, and would love for you guys to get in touch and give me feedback. So let's get into it with our goals for today. So the first goal is giving aspiring and current product managers an additional perspective on being a successful product manager. There are lots of perspectives out there. I am by no means an expert. I'm actually pretty new, relatively new. Well, I've spent 6 years, but as compared to many of the product leaders out there in the world, Silicon Valley, I guess I'm very junior in the ranks, and with all due deference to everything out there, this is just my 2 cents on what it takes to be a successful product manager. The second goal is that I hope this perspective is useful, and it helps current and future product managers to have a bigger impact in their companies and on their product surface areas. And I hope by taking some of the kernels in this presentation, you guys are able to use some of those principles and ideas in your day-to-day. And the third goal is more for me, selfishly, to get some feedback on my own point of view from the audience, and hopefully evolve my own perspective so that I can be more effective. I feel that in my own 6 years of having been a product professional, there's been an evolution in what I think a product manager should do, and I suspect that will continue to evolve. And so in the interest of getting to a more and more comprehensive understanding and one that's more effective, certainly looking for feedback and any critical comments from you guys. So let's start with some of my background and my journey. And I really talk about this because one of the most frequent questions that I get asked is, what was your path to product? Where have you worked? And what kind of education do you need? And what are the entering criteria to get into product management, which has become more and more a coveted role throughout the corporate community, but specifically within technology and within startups. So let's start maybe right from the beginning and kind of introducing myself as someone who was born in Karachi, a very big city of maybe 20 to 25 million people. Not many people realize that Karachi is one of the most populous cities in the world. And I think the call out there is that in a country and city like that, resources was always a massive challenge. And it was an extremely complex environment with lots of potential. but lots of ambiguity on how to capitalize on that potential. And as a citizen in that city, you're always trying to optimize for multiple things at the same time, which is the dilemma all product managers find themselves in every day. And it was a great environment to kind of grow up in. And it's definitely shaped my attitude in always feeling that A, anything is possible, and B, that nothing is easy, and that you have to overcome many challenges to actually reach your goals. And I think that was a great foundational growing up, city for me. And I think it's I've taken those lessons and early kind of learnings throughout my career with me. And so I graduated high school, and then I went to Cornell in the United States. And I studied economics and Near Eastern studies. I would say econ is a great major for people in college wanting to do product management. Frankly, I think there's no prereq in terms of the best education to be a successful entrepreneur. I guess if I could go back and if I had all the talents, I would study engineering so I could actually build the products that I thought about. And I've always been envious of those folks that have both the business talents and the engineering prowess to kind of execute and build products themselves. But to all of those non-engs out there, please don't be discouraged. It's definitely not MVP to be able to do that. And I think if you are able to understand your customer and ask the right questions and be more of a humanist and understand human behavior, that is far more important than actually being able to write code. And a lot of that can be delegated and be something that you can produce with the right team. So the MVP is definitely to understand humans and to understand how people behave. And economics was a great teaching in a quantitative framework to put that behavior in. And then I kind of graduated and moved to the West Coast and joined a company called Applied Materials, which is a pretty big Fortune 200 company, makes about $20 billion in revenue. And Applied Materials is in the semiconductor nanotechnology space. And the TLDR with AMAT was that they made the machines that make pretty much every microchip in the world. And so all your computers, iPhones, the chips inside them are more than likely made by machines that Applied Materials sold to companies like Intel, TSMC, Qualcomm, etc. And so really great to be in that kind of foundational tech environment as my first experience, especially because Applied Materials is really right at the start of the value chain. If you think about the spectrum from materials all the way to a finished product like an iPhone. And so that was cool. The other thing that Applied Materials taught me being a financial analyst was to always think about the P&L. And I would encourage every product manager to understand the fundamentals of an income statement and a balance sheet, because it will teach you the levers of how to build products profitably and to be able to contextualize your product work in the larger sense of what a business needs to execute against, which is its financial goals. And working in the CFO support office, it really gave me a great vantage into how executives at the highest level are thinking about profitability, how they're thinking about investment, how they're thinking about growing revenue and managing cost, but most importantly, how they're thinking about return on investment. And ROI is a concept that every product manager has to be extremely comfortable with, because you're looking to get the biggest bang for your buck on your resources, and having that discipline ingrained in you from a financial perspective is quite beneficial. Again, I don't think it's MVP if you want to be a product manager, but understanding the fundamental economics of a business, I think, is pretty important, and definitely helped me as my first 2 years out of college. So while I was at Applied Materials, I was hungry to explore my appetite for entrepreneurship. And since I was a kid, I've wanted to have my own business and be my own entrepreneur, but I needed to, stay in the United States by function of having a visa, which means I needed a job. And at that time, one of my mentors, Nomi, who was one of the founders at Peanut Labs, had been mentoring me and had asked me what I wanted to do beyond finance. And I kind of told him my dilemma about wanting to pursue entrepreneurship, but needing to do that within the framework of a company and a job because I needed a visa. And he said, you should really do product management. And product managers are entrepreneurs within a company, and you'll be able to interact with every aspect of the company, from finance to sales to marketing to design to development, and really be the CEO of your own product. And in that way, you will be able to grow and flex your entrepreneur muscles, but still be within the confines of the business and satisfying your kind of visa concerns. And so that was, my breakthrough into product. And many people ask, like, how do you do product? And I honestly think someone's got to let you, and someone's got to trust you with a product, because it is such a fundamental and strategic role at any company. And so, yeah, that was a really lucky break for me. And I joined as first product manager to the VP of product at a small 25-person startup, made around $50 million in revenue. Way different environment than anything I had been used to at Applied Materials, and really had the ability to kind of work on a product from scratch. And then you can see below, from Peanut Labs all the way to Dynata, there are these companies in the middle, Research Now and Research Now SSI. Pretty much what happened was Research Now was a strategic client that acquired Peanut Labs. It became a much bigger company as a result of that acquisition. Research Now then merged with its biggest competitor, SSI, and it eventually conglomerated into what became a billion-dollar company, Dynata. And so my product surface areas and scope kind of scaled with that evolution. And so I started as product manager, left as senior director, at which point I was running a pretty big team of 20 people with some direct managers reporting into me. And that led me to my most current product venture, which is at Coinbase, where I am responsible for a lot of our international expansion product strategy. And so that's been my kind of product career from a company standpoint. Also, something that I've been working on and is with me today is what you'll see on the slide, Electrum Pickleball, which is a company that I founded while I was at Research Now. So it was a side hustle, and now has grown into a business that makes several hundred thousands of dollars. It's only been on the market for, I would say, 15 months, and we spent that first 2 years creating the product. And that was an example of me taking the skills that I had learned through product management at companies, using them for myself to create a business from scratch and actually being able to go from that 0 to 1 journey. And those are the experiences that will color some of the comments and perspectives that I will be sharing with you going forward. And so if you guys have any questions on how I've been spending my time that I haven't answered, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to share more with you. So let's get into product management and the CEO mindset and what I really mean by that. The thesis is that the best product managers have the same qualities as CEOs. And I believe that if you learn how to be a great product manager, you will have all the skills to do this for yourself and create your own business and truly be an entrepreneur without necessarily having the confines of being within a company. Now, that's my personal goal, to eventually graduate to an entrepreneur where I can own my own business, own my own products. Many people are just trying to be great product leaders and own big product surface areas, strategic product surface areas with other companies. Again, I think the same principles apply, and the skill set that you need to have will be the same. So number one, a business is an extension of a product, and the same principles apply in creating and running successful ones. So let's start by defining what is a business. If you think about it in the most simple sense, a business is the venture of taking a certain amount of resources, and in most cases money, and being able to multiply and grow those resources. And the industry or space you choose to conduct that growth or execute on that growth will be called the business that you've entered to. But the principle in all businesses is the same, which is that if I'm given X amount of resources, what is my path to multiplying those resources in the best way? And resources are money, time, and the ideas and the capital that you can put in as a team, as an individual. And what you use those resources to create is typically what we call product. And that process of taking those resources and delivering that product and creating that product is called product development or product management. And then the value, or who you create that value through that product for, is your customer base. And you're always hoping that the value that you create through that product for your customer base is in excess of the resources that went into it, so that you have a profitable product. And that interaction between customers and products is what we define as sales and revenue, which is what everything boils down to and is the fruit of our labor, and what we want to see at the end of the day after having created and sold a successful product. And while there are other ways to kind of measure the success of the product, and sales and revenue may always not be your North Star metric, and you may want to be focusing on market share for a certain lifetime of your company, or you may want to just think about users and not think about the revenue they bring. Ultimately, for a business to survive in the long run, sales and profitability will have to become the #1 priority, because that is how we will be able to justify a return on the investments and resources we put into the product and in the business to begin with. So it's a pretty simple formula, not saying anything new here, but just wanted to represent the fundamentals of a business similar to the fundamentals of product and product management. And so the work you have to do to create those successful businesses is exactly the same in what product managers have to do at companies. And the question that we're always trying to ask ourselves is that, okay, I have these resources, but what is the roadmap to the biggest return on investment given these resources? And what are the A to Z steps that I need to do to deliver that return? And throughout all of my experiences from Peanut Labs, Coinbase, Electrum, Pickleball, that has been the #1 priority for me in terms of how do I come up with that roadmap. And is something that I feel has been appreciated by leadership at the various companies that I've been in. And being able to tie all of my roadmap initiatives back to the bottom line, or back to the key drivers for the business, is something that will always separate you from other product managers that may be just thinking about siloed metrics when they do feature or product development. So you really always want to be tying it back to your overall business goals, which is to generate revenue and eventually to generate profits for the business. And I cannot stress enough how, when you articulate your product ideas and your product initiatives in the lens of that delta that you can create, and that the amount you can move the needle, how much that's appreciated by leadership, and how much that will help you become a bigger and bigger product leader, and get more and more scope and more surface area. And so while that may seem simple and something that people should be doing, it's actually something that's not done by everybody, and something that I have seen other product managers miss out on. And so I would encourage everybody to always tie every single investment that you're making back to the business goals of how do we make money. And so what are the principles in being able to get to that end state of being able to drive the needle and make a difference at your company? One, you need to be one with your customer. And that's a simple statement, but it's actually hard to live by. You really got to understand the problems that a customer feels. What are the opportunities that you can capitalize on to solve those customer problems? And only by using the product yourself, only by being in the space and understanding the current competitors, the current providers of similar or different solutions, can you be one with your customers. So point #1 and point #2, that is be one with your customer and be one with your market, kind of go together. But unless you are living and breathing the problems that your customer base and your constituency have, you'll never be able to have the best ideas and the best insights as to how you can serve those customers and generate that excess value that we are talking about. Because remember, it's not just about taking resources and converting them into a product that customers would use, but it's about creating a product that has excess value to your customers greater than what you put in to create that product in the first place. And yeah, you've got to really understand who your customer is, who your competitors are, to figure that out. And the economics becomes like a fundamental thing over here as well. Pricing, how much customers are willing to pay for what you have built, what they have paid in the past, what they are willing to pay today, and what they will be paying in the future is something that every product manager should have their eye on, because that determines your ability to succeed and your ability to create that excess value. And that goes back to some of the first principles that I talked about, that having that quantitative mindset and being able to kind of size your opportunities is something that is going to be extremely important. And that's how you identify potential opportunities, by understanding the economics and being one with your customer and your market. But once you identify those opportunities, the story doesn't end there, because you've got to create a plan to capture that opportunity and identify what are the resources you would need to execute against that. Do you need dev talent? Do you need money? How much time do you need? What are the other resources that it takes to get there? And it is on the product manager to have a complete 360 understanding of all of those resources. And once you identify that, you've then got to the hard job of lobbying and finding those resources. And when you're at a company, that is like making pitches to your senior leadership, of getting them excited about a certain initiative and being able to articulate what your customer wants, where the market is today, what are the economics behind your idea, and how those justify the resources that you are asking for. And you've got to be able to make a compelling case. You've got to articulate it in a way that excites your stakeholders, so that people can trust you with valuable resources. And then once you have those, you have the tougher job of executing. And you've got to deploy those resources, lay out all the steps, and work with all the different partners in that journey, whether they're developers, manufacturers, designers, to take your vision and create a tangible product that customers would want. And then you've got to launch and market. And that sometimes seems simple, but is actually some of the hardest part of executing and delivering to customers, because you've got to be able to tell a very good narrative and a good story and excite your customer base as to why the product that you have developed is something that will meet their needs. And selling, which is point number 10, is something that is often, I think, taken for granted by product individuals, because it really is a very hard thing to convince someone or a business to take out money from their coffers and put it into your coffers. In fact, I think I have immense deference for salespeople, because that is a very hard thing to convince anybody to do. And when we are consumers, we are always looking at all the options that we have, and that appreciation for what it takes to sell really helps product managers understand how to create a product in a way that almost sells itself. And that vantage is just very important. And then the last thing is that you need to constantly be measuring and understanding what value you're creating, how quickly you're creating it, and what is that fundamental return on investment at the end of the day. So the second topic it's all about the customer, and the job of product is to enable sales and solve customer problems, and that's really it. There are many definitions of product that I've heard throughout the last 6 years. Connect engine design, manage the backlog, represent the user, enhance the product, optimize the product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would say all of those are correct, but incomplete. Because at the end of the day, if you are able to create product in a way that enables sales, it can happen in a way without any one of those things. And as long as you are focused on the problems that your customers have, whether those be back-end problems, whether those be more superficial problems, whether those are pricing problems, that is where a product manager needs to put his or her finger on And that is what the product team at any company is responsible for doing. And so the function is to enable sales and facilitate that transfer of value from customers to the business. And at Coinbase, which is my most recent experience, I've really seen this being lived because it's a product-led company, and ultimately product people are the DRIs, or the directly responsible individuals, for mostly all decisions. And every decision that a business needs to be making needs to be focused on this core principle of how do you transfer value from customers to the business, and how do you drive our business goals, which is to create a return for our shareholders, create a return for ourselves. And for me, that return or that kind of path to profitability and that path to enabling greater sales is always my P0, my P1, P2. And everything that I pitch to my leadership is focused on an investment leading to a return in sales. And we should always be asking as product managers, how is this going to help me sell more? And frankly, if the answer to this question is not obvious, then I would make a very strong argument that you're probably not working on the right priorities if you cannot articulate that or quantify that. And it's a very simple framework to hold your roadmap accountable against, but it's crazy how often it's not really done as dogmatically as it should be. One key thing that I will call out for product managers in the technical world that are working with engineering teams, and I'm actually borrowing this from a great product leader, Andrew Dillon, who told me once that all development is technical debt, and any feature that you add, even if it's minor, is going to make the system more expensive. So be very careful before you spend resources and incur any debt. And you really want to go back to the first principles and make sure that there is a clear path to enabling greater sales and moving the business goals. And feature development and product investment just for the sake of it is actually a non-principle, and it's something that as product managers we should avoid. So say no before you say yes. And so the last topic for today is, how do you go from 0 to 1? And the rite of passage for any product manager. And what is the journey from the brain and from the ideas that you have to sales and revenue? And product managers need to be able to have the elasticity to be able to perform at an extremely high level across each one of these life cycles, from the idea to identifying and articulating the opportunity, to pitching it in a way that attracts investment both internally from your company, or if you're raising from investors, then from the outside, converting those investments into tangible resources that can be utilized against a roadmap, and that eventually drives towards a product. And once you have that product, not only do you have to just create it successfully, but you also have to evangelize your community around that product. And many product managers need to get into the fundamentals of what it takes to market and what it takes to tell a great story to your customers. And selling and business development is something that I definitely believe product managers should have exposure to, because that is where you get firsthand feedback as to what customers are saying and what they really want. And only with that insight will you be able to create products that are attractive to customers and generate sales and revenue in a really good way. And so I would encourage everybody to not just think about a couple of sections off this picture, but really try and become better and better at all of these parts of the entire life cycle. Because if you're at a startup and you're a product manager, then you're not really going to have a big sales team. You're not going to have a big marketing team, and many times it will be on you to figure all of these things out. And that is something that I certainly had to do at Electrum, which was my first kind of attempt at doing this, where we took a single SKU company and turned it into a multi-$100,000 business in just 1 year. And I took pretty rudimentary steps like Facebook and Instagram where we were reaching out to players on the ground in person and selling them products and telling them about why our product was superior. And now we're at the point where we have like a pretty big following, and we have been able to list ourselves on the #1 pickleball site in the world, and they have become our biggest client. And the only way we were able to get there was by being extremely one with the community, and by being able to create a product that definitely met a clear gap in the industry. And then the connection and relationships that we created with customers on the ground is what enabled us to create that grassroots movement that has resulted in us being one of the brands in the pickleball space. And if you just look at paddles over here, Electrum is kind of #1. And I'm sorry, I didn't even answer the question on what is pickleball. Basically, it's like tennis and is the fastest growing sport in the United States. And it was a great niche that I thought that I could use as an experiment to take the skills that I had learned in product management at my different companies and kind of try this out for myself. And I would say it was a successful experiment. And I'm excited to continue building my skills, both as an entrepreneur at a company, as a product manager, now at Coinbase, and both as an entrepreneur in the initiatives that I invest my time in outside of my day job. So those are some of the learnings and insights that I kind of wanted to share with you. Please get in touch. Thank you very much for your time. Let me know if there are any questions. You can get in touch with me. I am trying to create a more and more comprehensive view of what I think product management should be, and who is it that makes a successful product manager. So yeah, thanks for engaging. Thank you again for Product School for this time, and hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.